The young and the restless spoilers shocked Jill sat at a cafe in Nice, her coffee untouched as she stared out over the Mediterranean. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden hue over the water, but Jill wasn't seeing the view. Her mind was far from the calm beauty of the French coast. It was consumed with the chaos she had left behind in Genoa City, the tangled mess of her relationships with Kane and Billy. She had come to Nice for a reason she wasn't yet ready to share with anyone, especially Billy. Billy, on the other hand, was back in Genoa City, pacing the length of his office with agitation in his every step. His frustration with Jill was building, the questions gnawing at him, each one sharper than the last. He had been trying to reach her for days, his calls, his messages, nothing. She was avoiding him, pushing him away, and the more he thought about it, the more infuriating it became. Jill had always been a pillar in his life, a constant, even when their relationship was strained. But now, it felt like she was slipping away, like she had turned her back on him completely. And for what? For Kane? Billy couldn't shake the image of her with him, so close, so invested. What had happened to the mother who had always fought for him, who had always had his back? Billy's thoughts spiraled. Why had she kept the truth about Kane's real identity, the truth about Aristotle Dumas's from him? Why had she kept it a secret for so long? He couldn't understand it. Jill had always been one to fight for the truth, no matter how difficult. So why was she hiding this? It wasn't just the secret about Kane, though. It was everything. Jill's sudden distance from him. Her reluctance to even look him in the eye anymore. The mother he knew, his mother, was nowhere to be found. Instead, he was left with this stranger who seemed to care more for Kane than for him. What's going on with her? Why is she so obsessed with Kane? The questions haunted him, each one more unsettling than the last. He knew she was acting differently, but now, after everything that had happened, Billy couldn't help but wonder if there was more to it. If there was something he wasn't seeing. Meanwhile, in Nice, Jill was sitting in her hotel room, her mind racing with conflicting emotions. She knew Billy was upset, and she hated herself for it. But what choice did she have? Kane had forced her into a position where she had to choose between her son and him, between family loyalty and the truth that had been hidden for so long. And Kane, of course, had a way of making things difficult. He had played her expertly, drawing her in with the promise of something that felt familiar, something she'd missed for so long, a son, a child she had never had the chance to raise. The affection she had for him was undeniable, but it went beyond that. It was more complicated. She couldn't bring herself to tell Billy the full truth, not yet, not when the waters were still so murky. Her phone buzzed on the table, interrupting her thoughts. She glanced at the screen and saw Billy's name. She didn't pick it up. Not now. Not when the truth was still too dangerous. She had to protect Kane. She had to protect the family she had just begun to rebuild. Billy will never understand, she thought bitterly. Not now. Not when he's too close to the situation. But Jill knew she couldn't keep avoiding him forever. She couldn't keep lying to herself. But the truth was so complicated, and it was too dangerous for Billy to know just yet. For now, avoiding him seemed like the only way to protect him. Back in Genoa City, Billy wasn't giving up. He had known his mother long enough to recognize when something was wrong. Jill's behavior, her avoidance, her silence, it wasn't normal. He had to know what she was hiding. So he took matters into his own hands, following the trail, watching from the shadows, asking questions. He had to understand what was happening between Jill and Kane. One evening, Billy decided to pay Jill's house a visit. He didn't call ahead, didn't send a message. He just showed up, determined to catch her off guard, to force her into a conversation. When he arrived at the house, though, what he saw shocked him to his core. Through the window, he could see Kane. Kane was sitting on the couch in Jill's living room, laughing at something Jill had said. They were so relaxed, so close. Billy's breath caught in his throat as he watched them. The way they interacted, it was different. There was something there, something that went beyond the normal boundaries of a business relationship. And then it happened. Billy saw Kane stand up, moving toward Jill, and to his absolute disbelief, he heard Kane say something that sent a chill down his spine. "Thanks, Mom. I'll see you later." Billy's mind spun, the words echoing in his ears. Mom? What the hell? He stood there, frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. Mom? Kane had just called Jill Mom. The same woman who had raised Billy, who had loved him and supported him. Kane had the audacity to call her Mom, and Jill had let him. Billy's stomach churned with confusion and anger. What was going on? Why was she allowing this? And more importantly, why was Kane, of all people, calling her Mom? Billy's mind raced, the questions swirling like a storm. What's happening? Why is she acting like this? Why is Kane so important to her? The answers were too elusive, too tangled in the web of lies and manipulation they had all been caught in. But Billy knew one thing for sure, he wasn't going to let this go. He needed answers. He needed to understand what was happening between his mother and Kane before it was too late. Back in Nice, Jill had no idea that Billy was watching, that he was piecing together the secrets she was trying so desperately to hide. She could feel the weight of the situation closing in on her, but it was too late to turn back now. Kane was the key to everything she had worked for, everything she had hoped for, and she wasn't about to let her son ruin it all. But Billy wouldn't rest until he uncovered the truth. His mother's betrayal, her connection to Kane, and the strange dynamic between them, it was all too much. And the more he uncovered, the more he realized that Jill, the woman he had always trusted, was no longer the same. And that, above all else, hurt more than anything else. This narrative deepens the emotional stakes, focusing on Billy's growing realization and his determination to uncover the truth, while Jill struggles with her own guilt and her conflicting loyalties. It explores the psychological tension between mother and son, as well as the growing bond between Jill and Kane. If you need any further changes or additions, feel free to let me know. Billy stood in the shadows, watching through the window as Kane and Jill shared another private moment. The sight of them, so comfortable with each other, felt like a punch to the gut. The words "thanks, Mom" still echoed in his mind, each syllable a dagger to his heart. His thoughts spun wildly, each one more unsettling than the last. Mom? The very idea was absurd. Jill had always been his mother, and yet, here was Kane, who had been a rival, an adversary for so long, now calling her Mom. It didn't make sense. What was going on? What had happened in the time he'd been away? Why was she letting Kane into her life, into her heart, like this? But as the questions piled up, another, far more disturbing thought crept into his mind. What if I'm not even her son? The idea seemed ludicrous at first. He shook his head, trying to dismiss it, but it clung to him like a shadow. What if I'm not really Jill's biological son? What if Kane and I are more than just enemies? What if we're brothers? The very notion felt like a bomb about to explode in his chest, shattering everything he thought he knew about his family. Billy's hands clenched into fists, his heart racing as he replayed every moment, every interaction with Jill. Her sudden distance, her avoidance, it all made sense now, didn't it? What if she had been hiding the truth from him all along? What if Kane wasn't just the son she had always wished for, but his real son? Billy could hardly breathe as the thought consumed him. Was this some kind of twisted family secret he was only now beginning to uncover? The questions were endless. Billy needed answers, and he needed them now. He had tried reaching out to Jill, but she had shut him out at every turn. He had tried to get her to explain, to tell him what was going on, but she had remained silent. Why? Why wouldn't she just tell him the truth? He had to know what was happening between her and Kane, and more importantly, what his place in all of this was. Why don't I just confront her? Billy thought. Why not just walk up to her and ask? Why am I sitting here, letting my mind run wild with suspicions and doubts? But the truth was, he was afraid. He was afraid of what he might learn. If Jill wasn't his real mother, if Kane was his brother, if everything he knew about his life had been a lie. How could he handle that? How could he possibly face the truth? Billy exhaled sharply, trying to steady himself. He needed to calm down. He needed to think. But he couldn't stop the anger from bubbling up inside him. If she's been hiding this from me, if she's been keeping secrets, I will make her pay. The thought of being betrayed, of not knowing who he was, of losing his place in the world, it was too much for him to bear. The following days were a blur of questions and investigations. Billy couldn't let go of the gnawing feeling that there was something more going on. He began following Jill and Kane more closely, watching their every move, trying to figure out what they were hiding. He couldn't confront them, not yet. But every time they exchanged a look, every time Kane called Jill Mom, it sent a fresh wave of anger through him. Billy was smart, he knew how to play the game. He knew how to get information when he needed it. But now, as the pieces of the puzzle began to come together, he realized just how dangerous the truth could be. The more he uncovered, the more he wanted to know, and the more desperate he became. What if he was right? What if he wasn't Jill's son at all? One evening, Billy found himself standing outside Jill's house, staring up at the windows. His fingers were itching to ring the doorbell, to force the truth out of her. He had every right to know. But there was something holding him back. Fear. Fear of what he might hear. Fear of being rejected by the only mother he had ever known. Suddenly, his phone buzzed in his pocket, snapping him from his thoughts. He pulled it out and saw a message from Kane. His blood ran cold as he read the words, "We need to talk. Now." Billy's heart skipped a beat. This was it. This was the moment he had been dreading. Kane wanted to speak to him. Billy didn't know what to expect, but he knew one thing for sure. It wasn't going to be a friendly conversation. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed his coat and headed out the door, determination in his every step. He had to know the truth. It didn't matter what it cost him anymore. He was ready to face whatever came next, even if it meant losing everything. When Billy arrived at Kane's apartment, Kane was waiting for him. The tension between them was palpable, the air thick with unspoken words. Kane looked at Billy with a mixture of apprehension and resolve. "You wanted to talk?" Billy asked, his voice sharp with frustration. "What the hell is going on, Kane? Why are you calling Jill Mom? What the hell is happening between you two?" Kane's expression faltered, but only for a moment. He stood up slowly, his eyes never leaving Billy's. "Billy, I didn't want it to be this way. I didn't want you to find out like this." Billy's anger flared, his hands clenched into fists. "Like what, Kane? Like this? Like you've been lying to me this whole time? What the hell is going on? Why are you and Jill, why are you two acting like your family?" Kane took a deep breath, his voice steady. "Because I am family. I'm not just someone you're fighting against, Billy. I'm your brother." Billy's world spun. The word brother hit him like a ton of bricks, his breath catching in his throat. "What the hell are you talking about?" Billy's voice cracked, the rage rising up inside him like a tidal wave. Kane's gaze softened slightly, but his words were clear. "Jill's been keeping this from you for a long time. She's known that I'm your brother, Billy. We're family. And I didn't want to be the one to tell you." Billy stumbled back, as if the ground had been ripped from beneath him. Brother? His mind couldn't process it. The idea that Kane, his longtime rival, the man who had torn his life apart in so many ways, was actually his brother? It was too much. His anger surged, a storm of emotions tearing at him. You. Billy spat. You've been hiding this from me, Kane? You've been playing me this whole time, like I'm some fool? After everything I've done for you, everything Jill's done, and this is what you're hiding? Kane stepped closer, his voice low but firm. Billy, I'm not the enemy here. We're in this together, whether you want to believe it or not. But Billy wasn't listening. His world had shattered. He couldn't believe it. His own mother had kept this secret from him, kept him in the dark, and now Kane, his brother, was standing there, telling him the truth. The betrayal was too much to bear. No, Billy whispered, his voice thick with fury. I won't accept this. I won't accept you, or Jill, or any of this. You've crossed the line. You'll pay for this, Kane. You'll all pay. Billy turned and stormed out, his mind racing, his heart a storm of hurt and rage. This wasn't just about Kane anymore. This was about the lies he had been living for his entire life, about the family he had trusted, now shattered beyond repair. He needed to make them all pay. No one betrayed Billy Abbott and walked away unscathed. The truth had set him on a path of destruction, and he wouldn't stop until he'd destroyed everything that had wronged him. Jill, Kane, none of them were safe. Not anymore. This narrative dives deeper into Billy's emotional conflict, his shock at discovering the truth about his family, and his decision to take action. It explores the betrayal he feels, his growing determination, and his thirst for revenge. Let me know if you'd like any further developments or adjustments.